Hello everyone, it's time for the next chapter. So in chapter 33 we found Hamish and some of the other pause walkers about to go down into the dark, murky depths of the Terrible's lair. So here we are, chapter 34, the depths. Down, down, deeper and deeper inched Hamish, holding his tiny torch in front of him. With every pitch-black step, he expected to reach the bottom. But this was not a basement. These steps seemed endless. He could sense there were no walls either side of him now, just the steps. The steps that seemed to be getting narrower and narrower and narrower, until he could only move forward by putting one foot directly in front of the other. "Are you still there?" he asked nervously. "I'm still with you," said Alice, putting one slightly shaking hand on his shoulder. "I'm not going to leave you. We're in this together." So on and on they went, secretly dreading they might hear a creak or a shriek or anything from the depths that might indicate a leftover Terrible was slinking or skittering about. Where would this lead them, this black nothingness? Was this one step too far? The stupidest thing they'd ever do? A trap? "Wait," said Hamish finally. "I think I'm at the bottom." He tapped his foot. The floor had changed. It was harder. Tiny pebbles and chipped stone crunched and gristled underfoot. Hamish's torch began to flicker and struggle in the soul-sucking blackness. "Try the matches again," said Alice. "Please." Hamish struck one and it fizzed to life. He thought he could make out something of interest a few metres away. The light of the match grew feeble, so he lit another, moved a few centimetres forward, then lit one more. The air was thicker down here. It felt as if he could feel the dark moss tickle his throat as he breathed it in. It was cold too, and both Hamish and Alice could watch misty plumes of their breath rise in the brief glow of each dying match. It was almost perfectly silent, save for a few distant clanks and clunks, like old radiators in the dead of night. Hamish could now sense something directly in front of him. He reached out to touch it. It was cold. Wet. Slimy. Right there, barely an arm's length away, was a vast iron door. Hamish felt for the lock. It still had the key in. Down the corridor they walked. There was more light here. An ancient brass lamp hung at the end of the passageway, casting long shadows across the stones of the wall. Their footsteps sounded so small in this place. "It's so cold," whispered Alice. "Wait," said Hamish, his arm out in front of him. "Look." At the dimmest end of the horrible underground corridor was another door. This one arched and scratched and scuffed. There was no handle, just a small round hole at the top. "There must be a handle on the inside," said Hamish. "We're going to have to reach inside and find it to open the door." Alice shook her head. "No," she said. "Who knows what's inside that hole? There could be more Terribles. Or maybe it's where they keep their requines. Or maybe there's a spider monster, or a giant rat, or the suckers of a 15-metre octopus, or just a massive wet tongue. Let's get the others. We can't do this alone." "We're here now," said Hamish. "It's just us. You and me. It's up to us." If he could have seen Alice properly in this darkness, he would have seen the palest, most sick-looking girl in Starkley. But then she shut her eyes and squeezed her arms around herself. "Fine," she said firmly. "Let's do it." From somewhere on the other side of the door, they could suddenly hear whispers, movement. The hair on the back of Hamish's neck stood up. Alice felt goosebumps rise all the way up her arms and shoulders, and she shivered. "I'm going for it," said Hamish. and slowly he slid one arm into the hole, breaking a thin film of slime and feeling it pop like a bubble and run down his wrist. He shut his eyes tight. Please don't be a spider monster. Please don't be a massive tongue. Alice could hear more shuffling from behind the door now. She could hear breaths and footsteps and clanks and bangs and... "Hurry, Hamish," she said, not wanting to think what might be about to grab onto his poor arm. "I don't like this." "Got it," said Hamish, clunking something down and feeling the door frame release its door with a musty woof. Hamish and Alice reached out to hold one another's hands as the door creaked open in front of them. And as they stood there, petrified, they sensed movement from inside. "Come on," said Hamish, trembling and putting one foot into the darkness. From somewhere down to their right, behind 5 thick iron bars, lit by a small flame on the wall, a woman stood. A human. "Mum!" cried Alice, pressing herself up against the bars. "Alice?" said the lady. "Oh, Alice! We've been so worried! Stephen, it's Alice!" "Run!" said a man next to Alice's mum. "Get out of here, Alice!" There were more voices now, voices everywhere. "It's okay, Dad," said Alice, now crying tears of relief and sliding out the rusty metal bar that held the door closed. "I'm with Hamish Ellaby." Something was set off inside Hamish, some kind of excitement, some kind of euphoria. "Dad," he thought. He began to run down the corridor, opening cage after cage, peering in, moving on to the next one. There was old Mr. Picklelips, Dexter's whole family. There was Felicity Gobb. There was the bloke who ran the gym. Wow, no one had even noticed that guy had gone. On and on down the vast, dank corridor, Hamish pounded, searching for his family, searching for his dad, until... "Hamish!" He spun round. "Mum," he said. "Jimmy!" "Oh, Hamish," she said, reaching out for him. "It's James," said Jimmy. "Have you seen Felicity?" "Where's Dad?" said Hamish, grabbing his mum's hand. "Where's my dad?" Her face fell. Ooh, I've got page stuff. Oh. "Oh, Hamish," she said. "What?" he said. "He's here, right? Of course he's here. He has to be here." "Oh, my baby boy," she said again, and even in the gloom, Hamish could see her eyes were filled with tears. "Don't you tell me he's not here," said Hamish, falling to his knees. "Please, Mum, don't you tell me that after all this, my dad is not here." Outside the stone cottage, the pause walkers cheered every new grown-up who appeared through the door, blinking as they shielded their eyes from the headlights. Families embraced, children were hoisted high into the air and cuddled and squeezed and breathed in. Above them all, army helicopters now circled the woods, shining vast broad beams of white light beneath them. Frozen terribles were being caged up and flown away on winches into the ink-black sky over the thundering sea. "Hamish," said Buster, with the hugest smile and holding a lady's hand tightly, "this is my mum." Hamish tried his best to smile and said, "Hello," as brightly as he could. Felicity and Jimmy were having an argument about why she never Skyped him back. Apparently Jimmy didn't think being kidnapped by monsters was an acceptable excuse for such mind games in their relationship. "So your dad wasn't taken, huh?" said Alice, suddenly there. Hamish looked at the ground and shook his head. "Guess not," he said. "So he just went." Well, that sucks. Yes, I suppose it does. Yes, said Hamish, rubbing his eyes. They were red and sore. She smiled at him. You still saved Starkley, Hamish, she said, squeezing his shoulder. You still saved the world. And as the police sirens approached through the woods, and as another terrible was winched high into the night to be disposed of at Her Majesty's discretion, Hamish Ellaby wiped away a tear and took a breath. Yes, he said, trying to nod convincingly. I suppose that's something. And then we'll have to wait now for the last chapter. I'll see you next time. Bye.